We're in the middle of the cosmic dissolution. Only two objects remained unaffected. Space, being all-pervading, could not be destroyed, and gold, being pure, could not be destroyed. Hence I believe that only Satva, purity, is good and desirable, not Rajas, activity or impurity, and tamas, inertia and stupidity. Well, we'll find out that space does get affected later on, and gold being pure could not be destroyed, but it was certainly affected because it was melting in the previous paragraph. Mount Sumeru, which was made of solid gold, began to melt. So there's the idea that there's some kind of purification going on here. So there's only Sattva, purity, which is good and desirable. It's a slightly weak paragraph, this, and this is usually indicated by the fact that Vasistha, the great sage, says, "I believe," or "others say that," and doesn't speak with authority and just tell us the case, just tell us what the case is. But let's proceed. When thus everything else had been destroyed, not even the ashes were seen. Even as when ignorance and its consequences are destroyed by the fire of the sage's wisdom, only the absolute purity remains, without even the ashes of past ignorance. For some time these fires could not reach Kailasa, the abode of Lord Rudra, but then he turned his fiery gaze on it and it began to burn. Nothing was left. Future generations could only wonder. Perhaps there was a world, a universe, a creation before. So this is an interesting point. In the middle of the cosmic dissolution, we hear talk of future generations, what future generations might think. So this isn't a pessimistic picture, because things carry on. The end of the universe in Hinduism leads to the beginning of the next one. Vasistha continued. Then there arose the terrible winds of dissolution, which blew so violently that the mountains and the oceans became exceedingly agitated and lost their natural behaviour, and even the netherworld seemed to fall into something far below it. The entire creation became dried and essenceless. After this there arose like an irate demon an enormous cloud, which produced dreadful noise. It was like the sound that was made when Brahma the Creator broke the golden egg, which gave rise to the created universe. The sound struck terror in everyone's heart because of the added sound of the disintegrating worlds and the oceans. It filled the entire created universe and united the earth with the heaven and the netherworld. It was unmistakably the sound of cosmic dissolution. Sounds like an atom bomb, doesn't it, with this huge mushroom cloud. I heard that sound of the cloud. I wondered, how could this cloud coexist with the fires of cosmic dissolution? I looked in all directions. I saw all around me showers of adamant and thunderbolt. In a moment I experienced the sensation of something cold above and something very hot and burning below. The cloud was so high above that it could neither be seen nor could the fire reach it. After consuming the worlds, the fires had become pure sparks and shone with an extraordinary radiance. When the cloud of dissolution descended, it appeared to be made of the most brilliant lightning. The waters of the 7 oceans equalled only a very small part of a corner of that cloud. It appeared as though these very oceans had risen into the sky. The 12 suns were whirlpools in that cloud, and the aquatic creatures were the lightning flashes that moved in it. Quite an extraordinary image, this massive cloud with 12 suns. The rains came. Every drop of that rain was like a thunderbolt. These raindrops filled the entire space. They fell with such force that they destroyed whatever was left of the universe. The whole sky was one mass of water. The rain put out the fires and reached the earth plane. The waters of this extraordinary and supernatural rain mixed with the fires that were still burning. The two could not defeat or conquer each other, and hence they were ill-matched enemies. because their equal prowess made the conflict interminable and inconclusive. They were of great strength and power, therefore their collision was extremely fearsome to witness. It's the elements, everything is getting reduced to the elements which are in conflict. Vasistha continued. At that time the entire space was clothed in the ashes of destruction. These ashes were churned by terrible winds. Falling rain was making more dreadful noise everywhere, which sounded like the victory cries of the demons of dissolution. The winds were carrying away the burnt remains of the cities of Indra, the god of heaven, and other deities. Thus the three elements, water, fire, and wind, were completely out of control, alignment, or harmony, and it looked as though they were fighting with each other. The tumult and the sound of this chaos were deafening. The torrential rain put out the fires, producing the sound chum, chum, chum. The mighty rivers that flowed down the mountains carried away other mountains, continents, and cities. The planets and stars in the heavens were also falling out of their orbits. The great tidal waves were everywhere breaking down mountains, and the wind was blowing these mountains away. There was utter darkness everywhere as the rays of the sun were veiled by the rain and the clouds, which were of dark blue colour. The very support of the earth had completely disintegrated, and therefore the mountains were disintegrating too. The tidal waves were picking up these mountains and were hurling them at the clouds. It appeared as if the three worlds were weeping and wailing aloud. The gods and the demons were all subject to these dreadful calamities, and yet they were still flying at one another's throats in interminable enmity. The gods and the demons are always at war, and they're still fighting even in the middle of everything falling apart. Only the vital air or prana, which presides over the disintegration of material or physical bodies, sustained these disintegrating objects and wafted them here and there. At that time the entire space was filled with flying cities, demons, fire, serpents and suns, which looked like so many flies and mosquitoes. Even the deities presiding over the different directions were approaching destruction, and there was confusion in those directions. The dust of destroyed creation was everywhere. The entire universe was filled with the debris of temples made of different precious stones and metals of different colours. Not even any refuge in temples. It was difficult to see the universe. Devoid of the veil of creation, that truth or God which remains after the total destruction of what is known as creation alone existed. And this is our spiritual practice. We leave creation aside and come back to that which is beyond all our notions of creation. Once again, there was fullness, the fullness that becomes apparent when the diverse creatures are destroyed, the fullness that was there all the time. By this time, of course, the cosmic fires of destruction had been completely put out by the torrential rains from the cosmic clouds. So we come back to rest in what is, and allow the destruction of all our notions, or allow them to do whatever they do. We come back to that which all these notions arise within.